gentlemen, this is Moster69 with my Assassin's Creed Valhalla review. Welcome back. It's been a long while since I've done a games review, but I thought, you know what, since I've spent 118 hours in this game, that it's my duty to do another YouTube video for Civilization in general, because I think the world needs more YouTube videos, guys, and I just want to do my part. So those unfamiliar with my game review format, we're going to do the good parts of the game, we're going to highlight the bad parts of the game, and then we're going to do a summary and a final score. So let's start off with the good. Right, so the first point is a little bit confusing. I don't know where I sit on this, so this point is going to be both in the good and the bad. And that is the sheer size and the amount of content this game provides. It is massive. The open worlds are massive. The game's story spans 3 countries plus more, and these maps are busy with things to do, whether it's multiple different types of collectibles, whether it's hunting and gathering, whether it's defeating world bosses or animal bosses or doing side missions. There's a massive amount of content you can engage in. Some people say that the game overstays its welcome and is too long, and it did feel like that to me, but I'm a guy that plays a lot of different games. I've got a lot of different games backed up. I'm a streamer, so I felt it was a little bit too long for my liking. But you know what, you also have to think about the flip side of the coin. Is if you're a person that doesn't have many computer games, then rest assured this game will give you bang for your buck, which is not a bad thing. So again, the sheer amount of content this game provides, I'm going to put in both camps, the good and the bad, depending on what you want at home. So there you go. The next main highlight for the game is the main quests and the protagonist, which I played the male version called Eivor Wolf-Kissed, and yeah, he's an amazing protagonist. So you start off with Eivor as a child. He has his parents killed in a raid, and then he gets adopted by a reasonably powerful Jarl and his son. So now you've got a stepbrother called Sigurd. And the main story really for me was Eivor's relationship with his brother or stepbrother Sigurd. Are they going to betray each other? Are they going to stay loyal to each other? Who's going to betray who? How is the story going to unfold? You know, is someone going to get stabbed in the back or whatnot? But that relationship between the two brothers is really what kept me going in this game. So Sigurd and Eivor, they end up going to England in a very crazy time. So as a history buff, you know, it's really intriguing to me that I get to play some sort of a computer game in this era where, you know, England has now been essentially invaded by Danes and Norsemen. And, you know, nearly a generation has gone by, and the Norse and the Danes are here to stay, and the Saxons are finding different ways of adapting to this new status quo. So some of them are integrating with the Danes and the Norse, some of them are still resilient and you know, want nothing to do with these invaders on their island. And it must have been an absolutely crazy moment to live in. I mean, imagine something, if you close your eyes and imagine something like that happening in your own country, you wouldn't be able to even, you know, comprehend that this group of people come over the ocean, attack your cities and start settling, and then you have to deal with them, and people start dealing with them by intermarrying with them, by integrating with them, and they integrate with you. It's just a really interesting time period, and I'm glad that Ubisoft gave me an opportunity to play in that time period. So back to the storyline, you go to England, you create a settlement, and you want to you know, create as many alliances as you can around you to ensure that your settlement is safe, really. So you're, you know, installing puppet leaders, you're, you know, poisoning one faction against the other, or you're playing one faction against the other. You're helping out different factions so they can, you know, be of help to you later on. And there's a bit of, you know, politics and intrigue and a lot of warfare, obviously. But it's really engaging, it's really intriguing. I think the characters are well voice acted. I think the language is well written, and the dialogue is intelligent and well written as well. So a big kudos to the main quest. The ending, guys, for those people that watch my streams, the ending, I was in turmoil. I was a little bit confused. I was really waiting for the ending of the protagonist, which is Eivor the Viking, but the ending had a lot more to do with the Animus side of things, and I kind of got taken aback because I played about 118 hours, and it was about 117 hours of that was about the Viking and Eivor. So I really want to know what happens to Eivor at the end of the game. Like, what, does he live happily ever after, or what happens? You don't really get that closure on Eivor. But on the Animus side of things, now that I've come to think about it, it was an effective ending. I think they put a lot of thought into it. And the more I think about it, I don't mind the ending, and I realize that it's more about the Animus side of things, more about the Viking that you play. And in fact, the fact that they want you to continue playing the game after the ending, they've given you a whole bunch of activities. Remember, I was referring to the large amount of content. Eivor's story continues on, if that makes sense, after the ending. So I don't think they really wanted to give you a Eivor ending, like boom, he walks off into the sunset, or boom, he dies, or boom, he gets married and has children. They didn't want to do that because they want you to continue to play the game, and in a way, maybe Eivor's ending is irrelevant in the big scheme of things in a way. And so I got to understand that after the initial shock of the ending, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to put the ending into the bad section, right? For me, the ending was I think well suited to Assassin's Creed fans. So which are going to be a shock to the guys that watch my stream. So I realize that. But you know what? Sometimes you got to think about things. Now, mechanic-wise, some new things. They added raiding. So as a non-Assassin's Creed fan and more of a history guy, I wanted to do some juicy Viking things like raiding, feasting, blowing a horn and drinking, and all those activities are in the game. So you can have drinking competitions, which was really fun, or sculling competitions. There's a raiding mechanic where you jump on your Viking longship and you cruise down these English rivers, and the ship mechanic was really fun as well. It was really simple and elegant to use the longships, and you would stop off and you would raid with your team of men villages and monasteries. So that was really fun. You could also kind of customize your team of men and women. You could get other players, characters into your squad as well, which was fun. It was fun. Didn't have a big bearing on the outcome of anything, but it was fun nonetheless. So the raiding mechanic, and they also gave you a DLC where you could go and do instance raiding, so that really added to the replayability of the game. If you really enjoy raiding a lot, you can do this instance raiding and go after legendary and unique items and armor and weapons, which is, again, it's good stuff. Settlement as well is a new mechanic. So as I said, Eivor and his brother Sigurd, they go to England and they create a settlement, Ravensthorpe, if my memory serves me correctly, and you upgrade this settlement. You upgrade this settlement by raiding and bringing back materials and supplies, and you build new buildings and you upgrade them, and these buildings actually give your character a buff. So the clever part was, if you want to realize those buffs, you need to have a Viking's feast. So you would have to go to your longhouse and you would have to ring the bell and have this feast, which was, admittedly a little bit of a boring cutscene. It wasn't very atmospheric, to be honest. But anyway, you'd have a Viking's feast and you would gain those buffs from your settlement. So if you're really well disciplined, I do recommend at the beginning of every session going to your town and having a feast and getting those buffs, and then going out into the world and kicking butt. So yeah, the settlement mechanic was really good as well. The graphics were solid enough. I played it on PS4 Pro. You know, there was beautiful vistas in Norway and England. I would definitely put that on the positive side of the book. You know, I had, you know, an amazing time flying my bird around and just looking at these different landscapes. The cutscenes were good enough. The facial expressions were actually pretty good. So yeah, all in all, I think, you know, I had a good time visually as well. Some people said that, you know, at a closer inspection, some of the rendering wasn't as good as they'd like it to be, but you know, on my PS4 Pro, where my TV is like, you know, 4 meters away from me, it was good enough. It was stunning. I had a great time visually checking out the world, and that kind of sums up all the good points I have, guys. So let's get to the bad, the bibbidi bad. All right, so. Again, the content, the sheer size of the content could be seen as a bad thing. If you're not enjoying the gameplay mechanics, then the size of the game might start to annoy you. If you're interested in just finishing the main story, but you can't rush through it because of the role-playing mechanics, i.e. you need to level up to a certain point to go to this area and then to go to that area, so you have to play through, you know, the different parts, then yes, I understand how the sheer size of the game could become a little bit bothersome, and to be honest, for me, it did overstay its welcome a little bit. So that's the bad side of having a large amount of quantity over quality. But for me, one of the main things that disappointed me was the AI. The AI was really bad. It was too easy. They were non-responsive. They didn't work with each other. Because I wanted to play a true Viking role, and I didn't like the fact that, you know, Eivor the Viking runs around like a assassin, I decided not to use any stealth at all. So I ignored every stealth mechanic in this game, and I just used the combat mechanic. And on the hardest difficulty, I could literally bulldoze single-handedly any settlement, any fort by myself. And that was a little bit disappointing. There was no challenge. And the game wasn't forcing me to think creativity at all. I would walk through the front door of any settlement by myself and absolutely annihilate the whole place. And I would still find that I would kill like 20 or 30 people, and, you know, with no stealth, and still there would be 10 or 20 guards on the other side of the fort just standing there, not even responding to the fact that, you know, there's a battle raging behind them. So a little bit disappointed with the AI. It was pretty bad, guys. The combat, again, it's Assassin's Creed combat. You know, Ghost of Tsushima has put this new freaking ceiling that I want all the games to aspire to, and this is an Assassin's Creed game, so it's not going to be at that level. But why shouldn't it be? Why not aspire to be that great, you know? So the combat was fun enough to keep me going for 118 hours. Don't get me wrong. But I was literally using one or two combinations for 118 hours at the same time. And I don't think I could do it for another 100 hours. Whereas with Ghost of Tsushima, I still have the urge, even though I've finished all the content, to go in there and fight people just because of the depth of the combat. Whereas not so much anymore with Valhalla. I'm kind of done with it. So the combat isn't as deep. There's like some parts of it where animations would start and the game kind of like locks you in, makes it a little bit difficult to judge and react to things. I found the fights with zealots to be a little bit like that, but anyway, it is what it is. A kind of very average combat system, in my opinion, but good enough to keep you going. The side missions were a massive disappointment, or mysteries as they were called. I think side missions, what Witcher has taught us, the side missions are wonderful mechanisms to really, you know, further flesh out the world that you live in effectively and endearingly. And these guys, I don't know, some of the side missions felt like a slapstick, like Monty Python comedy thing, which was weird. I wouldn't mind one or two of them being funny, but there was a lot of them that just tried to be really funny, and instead it made the characters involved in these side missions become caricatures, if that makes sense, like really exaggerated characters. And when you've got this like serious side mission, when you've got this serious main mission happening and the side missions are all this weird, a lot of them involve like children tricking you or manipulating you. It's just weird. And then not only were the stories sort of fell flat, the actual mechanics in the side missions were really basic stuff. Like you would go and find something, or you would maybe kill a person, or you would maybe kill an animal, or you would maybe just have some dialogue. But it was just simple gameplay that you would quickly resolve within, 5 or 6 minutes. So there weren't really kind of long, well thought out side missions that would, sort of distract you from the main quest. So they were a little bit disappointing as well. Now the performance was okay on the PS4. The only problem I really had with the performance, I would say, is the loading times. The loading times were pretty significant, but I know why, because the worlds that they rendered are so massive. And I give a big shout out to Ubisoft for this engine that they've built that can render these massive worlds with all these NPCs walking around, giving it life. Like, it is a marvel to behold. There's no doubt about it. I think I take it a little bit for granted as I'm critiquing all these elements, but it's a technological marvel that they can create such worlds. So good on them for creating this technology. So that's pretty much the bad guys. Let's go to the summary. So in summary, guys, I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla is kind of a missed opportunity, maybe. It's more of the same with a few different bolt-ons, like the raiding mechanic and the settlement mechanic. But I think they could have maybe used the Viking kind of era to further evolve the game, and they didn't do that. By that I mean, maybe they could have, instead of make, Eivor, who's a Viking, move and feel like an assassin, i.e. he's got his heavy armor on, he's got his wooden shield, and he's got, a massive two-handed weapon, and he's tiptoeing around the rooftops and jumping from one building to another. That kind of broke my immersion of the Viking world. It would have been good if they tried something else, like maybe have an Assassin's Creed character as your friend in combat, which you can loosely control, very much like God of War. That would have been quite interesting. Or maybe instead of picking a male or female Viking, maybe you could pick a Viking or an assassin and play the game with two different styles, two different skill trees. That would have been pretty cool as well. Anyway, these are just some ideas I had. So, the AI was a big part of my disappointment in the game, because at the end of the day, the massive part of this game is running around killing things, and when those things are very simplistic and very easy, and the combat system's very simplistic, then 90-80% of the time that you're playing this game, I was on autopilot doing the same things over and over again, just waiting for that next cutscene. So a big disappointment there on the gameplay side of things. But the story was solid enough, the ending was solid enough to keep me going, and my love for the protagonist and his relationship with his brother kept me going for 110 hours. So the fact that I went through 110 hours, it's a testament that it's not a massive flop, this game, in any way, and it might please a lot of Assassin's Creed fans as well. But I was hoping that they would use the Viking era to maybe evolve the game further. I never heard anything about a shield wall in this game. Like, you're raiding, you're fighting, you're in massive battles. Not one shield wall was formed, Ubisoft, and I am disappointed. I am very disappointed. Other things were captured, like sculling, feasts, raiding, your longboat, all that stuff was captured, but no shield walls. It's a sin, I tell you. It's a sin. So, all in all, guys, that's the summary. I think it was a missed opportunity. It was a little bit more of the same, but that might please some fans. So I'm not an Assassin's Creed fan, but that might please some fans. The ending was very intriguing, to say the least. So yeah, but all in all, guys, the gameplay, the AI is what makes a game, in my opinion. That outweighed the story and the great storytelling, unfortunately. So I have to give this game a 6.75 human skulls out of 10. That's it for now, guys. Thanks for joining Moster69, and I'll see you on the next review. Bye for now.